Thai boxing. Thai boxing. Come see the Thais, watch how they fight with just everything. Their hands and feet and bows and knees. This is an art of boxing you would all love to learn. Ooh-ah.
Hey guys, welcome to the Eight Limbs podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Wagner, and I'm here today with my esteemed colleague, Luca Bourdon, the most prolific kickboxing and pants karate historian on Twitter. How are you doing today, Luca?
Hi, how are you doing, Ryan?
It's good to hear. All right, so today we have a Patreon request, and it was such a good question that I decided to turn it into a whole podcast. It's from our friend Cobra Core, who's asking for a review of the top Chinese kickboxers, and nobody who fights for one. But before we get into discussing the Chinese kickboxers, I wanted to talk a bit about the Chinese style. So what are obviously Chinese kickboxers are usually coming from a Sanda background. And if you watch Sanda, it's basically like Chinese kickboxing with wrestling, but they have a more traditional martial arts flavor to their style. So they have a really bladed stance. They use a lot of kind of like the in and out bouncy footwork. And they use a lot of like side kicks and spinning kicks that are really fun to watch. So what are the main aspects that stand out about the Chinese kickboxing style for you, Luca?
I think discipline. They're like really disciplined and a bit robotic with their footwork and boxing. Like when you watch a Chinese kickboxer, you can immediately identify that it's Chinese and from Sanda. And because if you could put like that footwork drill where they put a rubber band between the legs.
Yeah.
To stay at the same, you could put that on basically any Chinese kickboxer that during a fight.
Yeah, they all have really bouncy styles from the Sanda background. They do a lot of combination punching, a lot of like swarming and punch flurries, and it's kind of weird because when I watch like amateur Sanda, I don't know if China actually has a professional Sanda league or competition structure, but amateur Sanda really doesn't focus much on boxing. So if you watch the like World Sanda Championships, they'll be doing a lot with kicks and takedowns, but there's not really much punching in it. But when they get into kickboxing, most of the guys, the Chinese guys with the Sanda background, focus heavily on punches. They do a lot of combination punching and swarming. One thing I've wondered about that is that like whenever I see a breakout Chinese kickboxer and look up their background, they'll have some weird regional title in Sanda, but it seems like nobody that you actually see winning world championships in their amateur Sanda like world championships really goes into kickboxing. So I'm not sure if you know why that is, but do you have any idea why the top guys in Sanda aren't really going into kickboxing? Does China pay really well for them to stay in amateur Sanda?
Yeah, I don't speak Chinese, and there's really few English source material on this. But I think, I think if you have a really high level in Sanda, I think you can be set up as a coach later or something like that. That makes kickboxing where there's really no money not really that viable an option.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't really know much about Sanda either, like the actual history or structure of it, because like you said, there's really no material in English on that. You just have to watch the fights where you can. But all right, I'll get right into this. Obviously, the first one that stands out in kickboxing is Qiu Jinliang. Combat Press has him ranked at number 1 at 67 kilograms and number 9 pound for pound. He's been fighting for... Go ahead.
I think that's a bit high, but I think I have him like maybe top 3 or 4 at 65 and top 5 at 67.
We at the Fight Site trust Luca's rankings a lot more than other media outlets, so we'll go with that.
Oh, but I trust Combat Press their friends. They're not like the worst rankings I've seen of kickboxing over the years.
Qiu has a kind of prototypical Chinese style. He uses the bouncy footwork with in and out feints, and it's interesting to see his fights with Thais because it makes it really hard for them to time their entries with kicks. So if you watch his fight with Fairtex,
Qiu Vertex.
yeah, Qiu starts trying to time his entries with kicks right away, but he's having a lot of trouble and he isn't really able to get a read on him. So Qiu later in the fight started backing him up and throwing the kicks behind that, and then Qiu later adjusted by swarming. So Qiu's pretty versatile. He can fight off the back foot a little bit. He's not really an outfighter, but he has some good counters if guys try to push into him. But mainly he's a pressure fighter. He's great at closing distance. He uses a lot of weaves, like stuff you don't really see a lot in kickboxing, where he'll use the rapid lateral movement and hip motion to weave his way into the pocket and then put combinations on guys. He's great at swarming against the ropes. He has really, really good boxing combinations, complex combinations. He'll manipulate the guard with hooks and uppercuts, go body and head, and he uses his weaving footwork and head movement to enter into them. He's got really good uppercuts, and basically his thing is getting his opponent against the ropes and then going to work. He does a lot of cool stuff, like using his jab to draw a high guard and then set up his combinations. He's really good at sweeping too. He has a nice light inside leg kick that he uses to break guys' balance when they're trying to kick him, or just to trip them out a little bit so he can uppercut them. And he uses a lot of high amplitude spinning attacks, and sometimes he goes a bit overboard with them, like he can just spam hook kicks now and again, or spinning hook kicks. But he also has some cool setups for them. He knocked one of the Thais he fought, I think it was Subsequent. He knocked him out with a wheel kick or a spinning hook kick from clinch range. He was like chest to chest with him and pushed off, and then use that to create distance for his spin. So he'll like hide the spinning attacks behind. He'll clinch up with guys and go chest to chest and use that to hide his step across, so he can step across his body before they're able to react, and then push them away to spin. So it's cool to see someone who has like a consistent way to get to those spinning attacks and doesn't just spam them randomly.
Yeah, when he gets a guy on the back foot, I think he has a really good spinning back kick too. He knocked out Kem with it. I think that's one of his best wins too. And yeah, he was one of the first guys to, because for a few years, until 2015, something like that, you had the top kickboxers taking a fight in China here or there. But you could tell that they took it like a vacation because you're fighting a Chinese fighter, and just like, I'll visit Beijing. It's probably cool. And then he didn't lose to a Chinese fighter, but Rico lost to Erasim Shuk in China. And then Shu beat Moussa Bormani, who was, I don't know if he was still Glory champion then, but he was a really highly ranked fighter. He was top 3 or 5 at 65 kilo back then. And it was a big upset when Jianliang beat him in 2015. I think that was really the start of China is on the rise, and from then you've got he paved the way for fighters like Wei Rui, Wang Wenfeng, other guys like that, Deng Zeqi, which we'll talk about later.
For sure. And Qiu has wins over a lot of great fighters. Like we mentioned, he beat Qiu Fairtex. He knocked out Kem Sitzong Pidong. He beat Alexei Ulyanov, who we both think pretty highly of.
Yeah, I see that. I think that's the tournament where he beat Ulyanov in the semifinals and Salvador in the Salvador French fighter who beat City Chai in 2015 or 16. Yeah. He beat them both. I'm not sure I really agree with the decision, but the fights were close.
Yeah, that's fair. That's another trend we'll see a little bit as we continue discussing this. Chinese fighters are hard to win decisions against in China.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. But yeah, he's got a lot of good wins. He beat Jom Tong, which by extra round decisions I'm not sure I agree with, but he beat Andrei Kulibin, Belarusian fighter, very very good. Bovier, who was shot back then because 2015 Bovier is not so that great a win. But yeah, he beat Kulibin twice. Bobby twice. Mustafa Mandi I mentioned. Ilyas Boulaid too. Who I think he's in Bellator now, Boulaid.
Is he in Bellator?
Yeah, he fights in MMA now.
Oh, yeah,
I
he is.
think
That's something, huh?
Yeah, not the guy I would have picked for MMA career, but
Qiu tried out MMA too. He had an MMA fight.
yeah,
Didn't go so well.
I think last year or in 2018, all the Glory of Heroes guys, Deng Zeqi, I'm not sure if Deng Zeqi had one, but Wei Rui had one and got submitted. Jianliang too. Yeah, they tried to have all of the guys fight in MMA, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, that was an experiment that only really happened the one time. They learned from that. But anyways, so Qiu Jinliang is probably by rankings at least, the top Chinese kickboxer in the world. That brings us on to our next guy, one of my favorite kickboxers, possibly my favorite at the moment, Wei Rui.
Yeah,
Combat
I think
press.
Wei Rui actually is the best Chinese kickboxer at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a little while since he fought. He recently, in the last couple months, just fought Liu Shanming, and Wang Pengfei, who are both quite good. But before that, it was quite a while before he fought anyone I'd actually heard of.
Yeah, I think his best win in the last few years since he lost to Urabin K1 is Deng Zeqi.
Yeah. But combat press has him ranked at number 8 at 65 kilograms right now. He's better than his ranking suggests, just because it's been a while since he was consistently fighting top competition. Rui is
combat press. I don't think they have rankings for 63 kilos, which is really his best weight.
Yeah.
And let me check my rankings for a second. I think I have him like maybe top 3 or top 3, something like that at 63.
Rui's a super interesting fighter. He's really versatile. He uses that bouncing footwork, the in and out footwork that we were talking about before. He's really good at drawing counters with it. He can set a rhythm with his bouncing and then make it look like he's about to bounce in to draw out punches from his opponent that he's able to counter. He uses side kicks a lot, but he uses them in a really consistent way. He'll set them up with like footwork and feints. He can throw it on the counter, and he builds off his sidekick. He'll do what Thais do with their teeth, where they pick it up and then feint it to enter into punches. He's really good at closing distance. I like how he uses his long rear hand, left hand straight as an entry. He'll throw that left hand just to get guys to counter it and to like distract them, and then he'll weave off of it or shift forward to catch them trying to counter him. He has really good lateral movement and exchanges. He's good at the open side counter straight, the thing you see Tenchin or Conor McGregor do a lot, where they get guys throwing the rear hand at them and then just kind of pivot a little bit inside of it and hit them with their own straight. He's really good at pivoting towards his rear side too in exchanges, which is a lot rarer. You'll usually see guys pivot towards their lead side, but when guys are moving towards their rear, it's usually more like general circling. But Rui will kind of like pull tight pivots to his rear side off his lead foot. He's good at throwing inside leg kicks while pivoting at the same time. So you'll see exchanges a lot where the guy goes to hit him and he kind of spins around them while kicking his leg. It's pretty cool. Generally, where he is as a fighter, he can kind of do everything. He's good at swarming against the ropes when he's able to, but mostly he's a pocket fighter. He wants guys just kind of on the edge of his range, following him and trying to hit him so he can counter them. He's a little bit vulnerable to pressure if guys are able to not take the bait and fire at him from long range. In his fight with Wang Pengfei, he was kind of playing with Pengfei a little bit earlier in the fight and countering him at will, and then later Pengfei started to, instead of taking the bait and throwing at his head from a long range, which Rui would then counter easily, he would start walking him down and pushing him back and then working when he was against the ropes, and he had quite a bit more success with that. Rui is a really good kicker. He has those Sanda style kicks where they throw them without really opening the hip much. They're very quick, but there's not as much stopping power if guys step into punch, which is how you saw him get knocked out by Koya Urabi, who stepped in to counter the round kick and just blasted him with a straight. He has good proactive defense. He's good at dipping and slipping his head offline while he's entering the pocket. And he's good at swarming on the ropes too. He's usually more of a pocket distance fighter, but when he's able to pressure guys to the ropes, he has really good combinations and can tee off there. It's really fun to watch. He's one of my favorite guys to watch at the moment.
Yeah, he's my favorite Chinese kickboxer with Wang Wenfeng. He has a really good left knee too.
Yes.
Which
he finished ZT with that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Nasty one. Yeah, it's really complements his game. It's pretty rare for Chinese fighters, especially those with Thunder base. You see some that did a bit more Muay Thai that have good knees, but yeah, it's really rare to have a Chinese guy with good knees. I think that really sets him apart from the rest.
Yeah, he's really good at catching kicks too, which is something you see in Sandal a lot.
Yeah, you see them catch front kicks and almost go for wrestling takedowns from there.
Yeah.
Like you don't see that much these days. I think the refs in China got a bit less lenient with the clinch and throws in general. I think they want their fighters to be more international style, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
But 5 or 6 years ago, you saw a lot of guys catch a front kick, run down the pipe. Is that the wrestling term? Running the pipe to go for a single leg, basically. And you don't see it that much anymore.
Right. Rui has a lot of good wins. Recently, he beat Liu Xiangming and Wang Pengfei, like we said, who are both quality kickboxers. A couple of years ago, he beat Deng Zeqi, who we'll talk about a little bit later. He was in K1 for a while, and he beat Ganapar Wirasakrek and Ren Hiramoto, who are both very good. He also has a win over Pet Panamrung. I did not score that for him, but it was a close fight anyway.
Yeah, it's a close fight. I think I originally didn't score that for him, but I watched it back like a year later, and it's not the robbery I thought it was.
Yeah, makes sense. He also beat the absolute shit out of Tananchai.
Yeah, really. I think Tananchai wasn't that active in those days, but yeah, that was a really good win. He beat Pakan twice too. I think that was really when I started noticing him.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, but that was Pakan's international career is another subject.
Yeah, that's a very late career in Paycorn. Yeah, if you're gonna take anything from this podcast, I think the main lesson to take would be watch Wei Rui. He's a lot of fun. He's super interesting. Our next guy is Jia Aoqi. Combat Press has him ranked at number 6 at 69 kilograms. I'd imagine you probably don't have him so high in the rankings.
Let me check. Jia Aoqi, I have him number 6 at 67 kilos, but it's not like a really deep division at the moment because it's stuck between lightweight and 65. So lightweight and featherweight for UMMA fans. And 67 kilos, it's an historically it's a good division, but for the last decade or 20 years, it's been the fights have been more at 65 kilos. So K1 just started. I think they started to do 67 kilo like 2 years ago with that shitty tournament Yutakubo won against Mondragon in the final, if you remember.
Yeah.
And the depth isn't quite there yet.
Man, I'm glad I have you to translate the kickboxing weight classes for me because kilograms messes me up. I can understand weight classes when they're 135 pounds, but as soon as you say if you give a weight in 67, I'm just gone. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not a weight.
That's boxing welterweight.
Yeah.
More or less.
I don't know. That still confuses me. But Jia Aoqi, what do you think of him as a fighter?
I'd put him in the tier below guys like Jianliang, Zeqi, or I'm not quite convinced yet. What are his recent wins? Yeah, he beat Tawanchai, which
don't remind me.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to mention it, but yeah, I think his fight with Pechtanong wasn't quite the win it sounds like.
A horrible robbery.
Yeah, and can't remember exactly what I thought about his fight with Boulaïd, but I'm not sure I was quite convinced. It's an extra round in China, which is about the same as an extra round in in Japan.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of IoT either. Still have some questions about him, and I don't really like his style. He's a brawler with a high pace, works a lot in punching flurries. Not really like a deliberate boxer like Qiu Jinliang or Wei Rui. They're very deliberate in their boxing. They'll throw setup punches to land a big, like they'll throw uppercuts to get you to drop your guard down the middle and then throw a big hook around the center. IoT is more just kind of flurrying. He has the typical Sanda stuff, the bouncing footwork to set up his entries and flurries, decent open side body kicks. The way he caught Tao and Chai in their fight, he was doing a lot of like the bouncing in and out, and Tao and Chai kind of like misread that. IoT bounced back, and then when he was coming in, because of the way he'd been moving earlier, Tao and Chai expected it to be bigger, but he just bounced in a little bit, and Tao and Chai went to counter him with a kick, but he saw that he wasn't coming in so far, so he pulled it back at the last moment, and then IoT just kind of swarmed him and hurt him with punches. So that's like an example of how that Sanda bouncing footwork can confuse guys that are looking to time their entries. He's good at catching kicks and countering them with punches or sweeping. Tao and Chai also struggled a lot with that. Whenever he would throw closed side body kicks to IoT, he would catch them and counter. Although he hasn't, all the Thais he fought have been southpaw. Pech Chenong and Tao and Chai, Pech Chenong and Tao and Chai were both southpaw, and IoT's southpaw as well. So he's been a little bit fortunate that the bigger kickers he's fought have been kicking into his closed side.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be as easy against an orthodox Thai. He has some all right footwork on the outside, but in exchanges, he's not doing a lot of lateral movement like Wei Rui. He's mostly just kind of flurrying. Good punching and kicking combinations. He punches off his body kicks, and he sets up his kicks with punches all right. He's beaten, like we mentioned, Tao and Chai. He won the 67 kilogram, I think it was, tournament in Wuling Fei. The final was against Pech Chenong Benchamek. He did not win that fight. That was a robbery. Recently, he's beaten Wang Pengfei, who we mentioned back when we talked about Wei Rui. Pengfei is pretty good, but that was a close fight as well. I kind of think Pengfei won that fight.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how he scored it, but yeah, that was a close fight, and he lost. He got KO'd. I'm not sure I saw his fight in June.
Oh, against Xiang Ming?
Yeah.
He was doing pretty good earlier. He was boxing him up a little bit, but Xiang Ming was consistently landing big knees to the open side, and then he finished him in round 2 with a head kick. Just killed him. Yeah. That was a fun fight, actually. But yeah, IoT, fun fighter, worth watching, but not my favorite. Probably not one of the best.
He's really an elite fighter. I think the thing that sets apart the great Chinese fighters and the decent ones who are going to make appearances against good fighters is the defense.
Yeah.
You've got they can all punch in combination. They're all a bit lacking in punch kick combinations. It's not really something you see Chinese do too much, except Wei Rui a bit, or maybe like just a jab low kick, something basic. But it's not really like you don't see them closing a free punch combo with a low kick like a Dutch guy would.
Yeah, the way they set up their kicks with punches are more like slick little tricks. Like Deng Ziqi he'll use like a long right hand to throw a marching lead leg body kick, but they're not doing like Dutch combinations where they're throwing 3 punches, jab, cross, lead hook, and then pounding a kick in there. They're more just kind of like trying to trick you with one shot and then setting up a kick. Rui does some of those combinations, but for the most part, they put them together like one punch and one kick rather than And when they're swarming, they rely more on their hands.
Yeah, and then a flashy kick on its own, like a spinning back kick, a spinning hook kick, or something like that. Once a guy is on the back foot.
Yeah. All right, our next guy, Zhu Shuai. Do you have Zhu Shuai ranked anywhere in your rankings?
Let me check. He beat Urabe, so I must have him somewhere. I have him at 6 at 63 kilos. But he lost recently to Jin Ying, so maybe I'll have to change that because a single win. He's got 2 good wins, but his record is really spotty before that.
Yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere for me. Um, I wasn't really paying attention back when he fought Irby, and after it happened, I was kind of surprised. So I looked him up, and like you said, his record is very spotty. He only recently kind of started fighting elite competition, I think. He has a lot of losses to guys I haven't heard of.
So let me run down his losses. So Liu Wei, very good Chinese fighter, his first loss in 2015, so it's not really something worth mentioning. He's a good fighter. Pashkaev fought in K1 at 63 kilos. I think he fought Ren Hiramoto and got knocked out. Decent Russian fighter, but he's kind of disappeared since then. Edward Mikovic, I don't know, but he's Belarusian, so presumably
he's good.
He lost to Gianni Fiorenti, who I consider maybe the best prospect in French kickboxing. Really slick fighter. Pietro Dorji is a standard Dutch guy. Some Canadian guy, Ferdas Naimi, don't know him. Wang Junyu, some Chinese fighter. And Denis Vosik is a German guy. He's one of the better German guys, but it's not like there's really that many great German fighters in kickboxing. So yeah, I'm not really. I need to be convinced. He has 2 good wins against Tourabe and Asaisa, who is really, really good. But like, it's one quick knockout over Tourabe and a decision he won because of a knockdown. So I think I still need to see him fight a legit kickboxer and dominate him from start to finish before I'm quite ready to say he's gonna be something great.
Yeah, I don't really know too much about him because I had a lot of trouble finding tape on him. The Irby fight was finished very quickly. He just kind of knocked him out right away with the straight left. The Asahisa fight I actually couldn't find, so I had to watch like a 2-minute highlight, and it's one of those like Glory of Heroes type things where the YouTube video says Chinese man unleashes power of mountain on white devil foreigner or whatever. Then it's like a 2-minute highlight of him kicking the crap out of Asahisa. But from the little bit I could see of Zhu Shuai, he puts his punches and kicks together pretty well. He has decent combinations, and I like his boxing combinations quite a bit. He doesn't do like the wild flurries like Aoqi does so much, but they're very deliberate combinations. He has a really good left hook, uses the body shots to set up head shots well. I think one of the knockdowns, or maybe that was the only knockdown on Asahisa, he like threw a straight right to the body and then kind of held off a moment for Asahisa to counter, then immediately dropped him with a left hook. He's a good combination puncher, solid boxer. But other than that, I don't know too much about him.
Yeah, he's more of a prospect for the future that got a couple of big wins, and I think he needs to just confirm that he's that good. Or the problem is that I'm not sure he's gonna have that kind of competition in Wu Linfeng, because I think Wu Linfeng and Chinese kickboxing in general is starting to, because it's getting pretty big in China. I think they're getting to, they're Thai fighting it a bit, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, the Glory of Heroes matchmaking has been just dreadful lately.
Yeah.
The only reason Rui actually started fighting anybody of note is because he got out of Glory of Heroes.
Yeah, and he got to K1 for like a year, and I hope they bring him back someday. But that's...
Even in like his first 2 fights in Wu Linfeng were against Peng Fei and Xiang Ming, who are good. And then if you look at his Glory of Heroes record, it's like just random Italians, Spanish, Iranians.
Yeah, Santana is like Simon Santana, Norwegian guy. I think he's like he was in Super Combat back in the day, and he was like decent, but it's not like something you'd really mention if you wanted to rank a fighter.
Right. So yeah, Zhu Shui, someone to keep an eye on, but I don't really know a ton about him, and there's not a lot of tape available on him. If you're trying to look up like Chinese kickboxers, you're gonna have to settle for watching like 3-minute highlights curated by the Chinese promotions YouTube account, or like potato footage, or the fight's not available at all.
It's really a throwback to the time where you watched Muay Thai with cell phone footage from the ring.
It's pretty bad when Muay Thai is a lot more accessible and high quality footage than Chinese kickboxing.
Yeah, you've got streams from Raja Damnan in HD. It's amazing.
Yeah, Muay Thai is doing pretty well for the footage right now. All right, our next guy mentioned Deng Ziqi. I don't think Combat Press has him ranked. Do you have him in your rankings anywhere?
Let me check that. I think I have him 12th at 63 kilo again because it's like a division full of Chinese guys. Anyway, also Chinese guys, like many of the Asian countries, they have fighters like 65 and under, and nothing above. Like Japan.
Ziqi, go ahead.
No, I was just saying like Japan or Thailand. There's not really any other kickboxing countries in Asia. But yeah, they're small.
Yeah. Ziqi, I wasn't able to find a lot of his fights against good competition. There's a lot of him beating up, again, random Italian dudes I've never heard of. He does have some good wins. He beat Lerdzilla. He beat Stavros. I'm not going to attempt to say that guy's last name, but if you follow K1, you know who Stavros is. Yes. He beat Rung Ravi, who's a decent Thai. And recently he beat, I guess within the last 2 years or so, beat Christian Spectu, who was around in K1 for a while. He beat Sergio Walezen too. I'm not too familiar with him, but I think I've heard you talk about Sergio before.
Yeah, Sergio Walezen is a veteran, sort of a elite journeyman at 63 kilos and around. He also beat Javier Hernandez, Spanish fighter. He's the former It's Showtime champion. And he was in K1 until Taiga beat the shit out of him and he left the ring. But yeah, really good fighter. Javier Hernandez, he had a really good fight with Hirotaka Orabe. That was the tournament where Koya and Hirotaka fought each other. And I think if Hirotaka lost the first Koya fight, it's because of his war with Hernandez in the semifinals.
Okay.
It's a really good fight. It comes down to like a knockdown in the last seconds of the extra round or something. Really excellent fight.
So for Ziqi, he's a little bit more of a kicker than most of the other Chinese guys. He does a lot of work with kicks on the outside. If you watch his fight with Christian Spectu, he basically picked him apart with kicks for most of it. He does like cool marching combinations into his kicks. He'll throw he does a lot of kicks with his lead leg too, rather than his rear leg. So he'll throw like long right hands and then step forward so he's in southpaw to throw the left leg body kick. His work in the pocket is super aggressive, a little bit sloppy. He's really wild in the pocket. So he'll use like the long range kicks to score at range and keep guys on the outside. And either when he can pressure them to the ropes or when they try to step in on him, he'll just like kind of go wild and bang it out. He's not great defensively, but he's a pretty good puncher. So him kind of freaking out in the pocket works a little bit.
Yeah, he's got the power to do it, and at least he'll knock you out, or maybe he'll get a knockdown that will secure the decision for him in those type of exchanges. He also got a bit of a win over Chan Yong Lee, who's in Rise now, and did really well in the. Well, not really well because he lost to Yodlek Pet, Kenju Umeno recently, but top fighter in the division in Japan.
Our next guy is Jin Ying. I could barely find any footage on him.
Yeah, not him.
I saw a fight against Fabricio Andrade. He lost that, and he looked like super wild and crazy. Fun to watch. He did a lot of crazy leaping attacks, like wild flurries in the pocket, but he didn't seem very like scientific, not a lot of deliberate combos, just a lot of going crazy. But then again, I couldn't find, he beat Zhu Shuai and he beat Zhao Chongyang, who are solid fighters. So maybe he's doing something else that's good, but like I wasn't able to watch those fights where he beat good fighters. So I do not know much about Jin Ying.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. And like a lot of Chinese guys, spotty record before he gets on the scene and beats Zhu Shuai. Like he's lost twice to Denis Vosik, twice to Adrian Maxim, who's a decent fighter, but not like anything special. He lost to Tanon Shai, which no shame in that. And yeah, he lost to Daiso Sasaki, the Crush champion too. So yeah, I'm not too sure. I need to find more of him. but the internet is what it is, and it's not always that easy.
Yeah, his pro record goes back to like 2014 too, when his Wikipedia page lists him at 20 years old or 22 years old.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with a lot of Chinese fighters. It's just, since they started becoming good, they fight a lot, very young, almost like Thais, and it's not unheard of to have them spotty records early when they're like from 18 to 22 because they fight fighters that are objectively too good for them. But it's like Japanese fighters getting thrown to each other at 18 and becoming good later. So yeah, he's a guy to watch, but not enough info on him just yet.
Quite a fun fighter. Like any fight of him is probably going to be entertaining, but we don't have too much to go on here. Our next guy I'll mention is Wang Wenfeng. I know Cobra Core said nobody who's fought and won, but he's not here right now, so we won't tell him. Where do you have Wang Wenfeng ranked?
I have him. If my mouse start working, I think I have him maybe 4th at 60 kilos. I think 5th at 60 kilos, just below Takeru, Enashi, Shiratori, and Timur Nadrov, which I'm gonna drop soon because he left for boxing.
I don't know too much about Wenfeng, so I'll let you take over this one.
Let me find his record. Mostly, he reminds me a bit of Wei Rui in the style. Really, sort of really subtle head movement. The basis of his game is like other Chinese fighters, bouncy footwork, decent boxing, bit more of a counter fighter than other guys. So in that sense, a bit like Wei Rui. He has two fights with Ilyas Enashi, who is really good. I think maybe the best Dutch fighter at the moment. He won the first one. I don't quite agree with that, and he lost for the one title against Enashi. He lost that one. I agree with the decision, but it was a much closer fight. And he also has some weird losses to like Denis Fosik again, and Alex Das, some random Portuguese and Spanish fighters. But he made the final of Cologne tournament against Sexan. And yeah, really good fighter. I think he's gonna be how old is he? 27, so he's in his prime. But I think he's gonna do some things in one. Which I'm sorry, I know one has a bunch of issues, but kickboxing wise and Muay Thai wise, I like what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, their MMA is not very good, but they have one of the more interesting boxing rosters on the sport, especially now that the coronavirus thing forced them to actually make Thai versus Thai fights. That was really a godsend.
Yeah, and he's also won. I think I started ranking him when he won the Kunlun tournament at 61 kilo, where he beats Christian Petcu, Daniel Puertas Gallardo, really good Spanish fighter. You wouldn't win if you only saw him get knocked out by Takeru, but he's a really good fighter. And Lin Xiangbang, who beat Sexan in that tournament.
All right. Do you have any other interesting Chinese prospects you want to bring out, or you want to talk about a little bit about historical Chinese fighters?
I have Liu Wei, who fought a bit in K1 and has a draw with. Let me check. Where is this record? I don't think he has a Wikipedia page. That would be too nice. So I'm gonna have to find his playlist. So yeah, Liu Wei fought in K1. I can't remember who he fought in the tournament, but I think he got robbed. So probably a Japanese fighter. He fought Qiu twice, I think. He's got like I think his record is like 30 and 14, but it's he's better than his record. And I only have he fought in K1 twice. I had more fights on him. I think he fought a few times, and I think he got a draw against Qiu, but I'm not quite sure. And really competitive with ties, and should have gotten another shot in K1. He fought against Kung Napa, Gonapar for those who only hear his name from K1. And he had a really good fight against Kung Napa. I think he's towards his late 20s too, so he's a guy I'd like to see get a shot at international competition more often.
You mentioned him to me, but I couldn't find a Wikipedia page for him, so I kind of gave up after not being able to find any Deng Ziqi or Jin Yang fights.
Yeah, I have a playlist for him that has like 3 fights, 2 in K1 and something in Hero Legends.
Okay.
I
How
think he
about
fought,
go ahead.
I think he fought Gabriel Varga too, and had a really good fight against him like back when he had just lost his glory title, I think.
In terms of historical fighters, who are some Chinese kickboxers from older eras that we should be aware of?
There's a bunch of Sanda guys who had some, I think it's towards the early 2000s, late 90s. I just need to find their names again. Let me check. Because I'll make a confession. I'm absolutely terrible at remembering Chinese names. Japanese and Thais I'm okay, but Chinese I just can't do it. Liu Hailong. So let me check. I think he's got a.
They're all like very short and they have the same phonemes, so yeah, I can see why it'd be difficult. You can almost like replace it with any other kind of Chinese sound and it sounds very similar. At least like Hirotaka, Asahisa, names like that are not hard to remember. They're very distinct.
Yeah, the Japanese is relatively easy to pronounce once you realize there's like A, I, U, E, O, Ka, Kiku, Keko, and it's always gonna be that, and it's easy to read. When you've got like Qiu Jianliang, I think it's actually pronounced Qiu Jianliang. So yeah, it's a bit. So yeah, Liu Hailong is 39, so he was fighting in the 2000s. He's a Sanda world champion in 2003, and he fought some Thais. He beat Muslim Salikov, who is in the UFC now, to win his title. And I can't remember exactly who he fought from Thailand. Yeah, so he fought Robert Cano Racing and beat him. I don't know if you remember Robert.
Yeah, I remember that fight. Hailong, he like threw him out of the ring, didn't he?
Yeah, and a bunch of other Thais. Sokmokol, I don't think that's a really big name, but yeah, he was one of the first fighters to really beat some Thais, mostly Robert, who was quite old, I think, at that point, because he's a 90s fighter, and I think the fight was in like 2003 to 5, something like that. But yeah, I think that was one of the first big wins for Sanda over Muay Thai at the time. And
He
yeah,
was
really
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
He was wasn't he kind of like recognized as universally as the Sanda greatest of all time until Salikov came along and won I don't know, like 7 world championships or something?
I'm not sure if Salikov actually won that much, because I know he beat Salikov. But
Salikov won like 6 and then got second in one of them.
Yeah, I think he beat him. I think Liu Hailong beat him in 2003, so before he won his first one.
Yeah, that was early in Salihov's career.
Yeah, and
I think later in Hailong's.
Yeah, it was. He wanted to fight Kung Lee at the time, but it never happened because Kung Lee, I think, went to MMA around the time. And I think that's some sort of thing that was World Rankings. That was not the World Championship, but sort of their pro format, if you will. And I think he won it like 3 or 4 times. The King of Sanda tournament.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
that anymore.
No, I don't think so, because I haven't thought about it in like a decade.
Yeah, I think it's just the amateur world championships now. Not too sure how all that works. It's very confusing.
Yeah, Chinese kickboxing is a mess to get into because it's Sanda, and then I think it was really big in the 2000s, and then I think Wu Feng really started to take off because Wu Feng is quite old. I think Wu Feng has been around for probably around 15 years, something like that. So I think Wu Feng probably took the place of that thing. And otherwise, which other Sanda guy do I see? Shuyan, Kongli. Bao Li Gao is a name I sort of know. I had a playlist for him, but I think half of it got deleted because I did it like 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, everything's deleted. And I don't think he's got a Wikipedia page. It would be too nice.
He had some MMA fights.
Yeah, Bao Li Gao is known as the Muay Thai killer. He was 48-6, and let me see if I can find. Yeah, those guys were all Sanda world champion, and around 2000 or the 90s, they started bringing back some sort of challenge, of course, challenges like that fight Kyokushin guys or Muay Thai guys and stuff like that. Generally, in those type of things, they, like the Japanese do today, they handpick the guys they bring in.
Yeah, and they were under standard rules too, right?
Yeah, they were all under standard rules. So you get guys like you get a lot of fights where Muay Thai guys basically get wrestled to death.
Yeah, I remember he knocked out one of the Thais with a head kick in that challenge match, right?
Probably, but my memory isn't that great.
Do you have any other guys you want to shout out or closing thoughts about Chinese kickboxing?
Did I say anything about Shuyan?
You may have, but the names all sound very similar to me.
Because I think that was before we started recording.
Oh, yes.
So Shuyan. Shuyan is the first fighter. He's a bit of a journeyman. He's 47 and 21. You may have seen him against Giorgio Petrosian in 2015 in Hero Legends. He got knocked out with a knee. But he's the first fighter Chinese fighter, I think, unless I'm forgetting someone, but I don't think I am, to win a fight in K1, which was a big deal at the time. He didn't really beat a great fighter. It was Yuichiro Nagashima, Jinotsu, cosplayer and
I'm wounded that you called Nagashima not great. He knocked out Shinya Aoki. If that doesn't make you great, I don't know what does.
In the MMA one.
That was one of my favorite combat sports moments. Aoki spends the entire first round, the kickboxing round, just flopping around and stalling, desperately trying to avoid getting knocked out. Then right away in the MMA round, he just gets his head caved in with a knee. Oh yeah, and this podcast is for Cobra Core, who's like the biggest Shinya Aoki fan on the internet. So that's a cool anecdote to slide in there.
Yeah, so he knocked out Nagashima. Then he went spotty, he fought Buakao and lost, because of course he lost to Buakao.
Yeah.
He beat Malaipet, who was already old and didn't give a shit. But he fought Sutsakorn, Abdallah Mebel, who was a really good French fighter on that time. He fought Lam Songkran too, so he was really one of the first fighters. He lost a lot, never got KO'd too much, but he was one of the first fighters to really fight good fighters internationally and be competitive. He has a win over Mike Zambidis. He drew with Sato late in their careers, but I think he's really the first guy that I took notice of, and I was like, nice, as Chinese fighters. He loses a lot, but he's competitive he's good enough to be competitive at an international level. Otherwise, stylistically, he's like your standard Sanda guy, but just a bit better than at kickboxing because early in, like you said, in Sanda, in straight Sanda, they don't really punch that much. They kick a lot and they wrestle.
Right.
So they didn't do too well when they transitioned to kickboxing. And he was one of the first guys to really be competitive in it.
So you think they adjusted their style after that more and kind of learned from that? Because nowadays they focus a lot more on their hands.
Yeah, I think that's just once again that's just me guessing because of other dynamics elsewhere. Like in China in the Olympics, once they decide to get good at a sport, it takes them like 5 years because you got or a billion guys to make a talent pool out of. And I think because it was really sudden the rise of Chinese kickboxing. It was like one day, if you go to China in 2014 to fight, it's a vacation, and from 2015 on, you're in tough fights. So I think really they must have put some means into it and really start to develop it. I think when they saw that there was only one doing Sanda, and nobody's gonna come to fight them.
Right.
That to send fighters and I think there's probably so some kickboxing schools opened everywhere and they started to really put some money behind it to develop the talent pool.
Makes sense. All right. Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to shout out or promote?
If you speak French, I have another podcast, Bordering, which I do with my other French fight side colleague Baba. And I write for Bloody Elbow once in a while, not too much these days because so it's a complicated time. But I probably start writing again for Fight Site since I have more time to do it.
Awesome. I look forward to that. And you guys heard him. Go check out Obor Doing, even if you don't speak French. It's worth it just to hear Luca and Baba's voice.
Yeah, maybe in French.
All right. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
How to fight with just everything. Their hands and feet and balls and knees. This is an art of boxing you would all love to learn. Ooh-ah. You may be small, no need to fear. Strike right and left with your own bows and with your knees. Now suck them hard with your soul and then kick out and on.